Okay, next step. Let's create a player so we can create some interesting logic here. So let's close level.tilemap and say, okay, we have a level now. It's not much, but it's there. So let's start by creating this player. And we do that by first importing the asset or the assets for that player. And in the War Battles pack, we have, I'm going to use, you can use whatever you want, but I'm going to use the infantry guy. And, oh, sorry. This is the guy I'm going to use. Small character. And we're going to bring in a couple of these sprites or images because we're going to animate it as well. So I'm going to bring in first, let's start with down, for example. I'm copying that one in, and let's call this, rename it so we don't get a little bit more descriptive name here. Let's call this player down. So now we have these images. Next step is to create something that default can work with, because if you just create a sprite, we're going to do that in a bit. You can't just assign it an image. The reason for that is because it's very inefficient to do so. So in order to get good performance and good control over things and also be able to animate stuff, we have to first create an atlas for this player sprite. So right-clicking main, new, and then atlas file. I'm going to store all the sprite assets in this atlas file. So let's call this sprites. There we go. And then here in the outline, we can start by adding an animation group. It's going to be called anim by default, but let's rename this to player down. It's called down because the player looks down on the screen, the character. And then right-clicking again, and then add images. And we select 1, 2, 3, 4 here. And now we have this little guy imported into that. So we see that we have all the images here. And we can actually animate it by pressing space when we select animation here. It goes a little bit too fast, I think. Let's slow that down to, let's say, 10 frames per second. And also, I'm going to change the playback, because I'm not going to play this once forward. I want to play it loop forward. You see that there are a number of ways to play this this animation. You can play it once forward, once backward. You can once forward and backwards, which is a ping pong, and then you can loop all these variations. Okay, and save it. Oops, wrong button. Okay, so now we have the sprite atlas set up with an animation for our new little player. And the next step is to go to the main collection here, open it. And what we're going to do is to create another game object, which will be the player. So we have one called level, and then we right-click collection here and select add game object. Give it an identifier, let's say player. And we right-click that and select add component. We haven't made a sprite file, so we don't have to choose add component from file. So we can choose add component directly here and just select sprite. Okay. And the sprite needs an image. It says image required field. We click here, select sprites.atlas as the image. So now this sprite will pull in whatever is in that atlas. And we can have to choose a default animation. And it tries to pick out one called anim, but there is no anim there. But this dropdown will give us a selection of whatever is in there. And right now we only have one animation, which is called the player down that we created. So there you go. And save. If we zoom in, we see that, okay, something is selected here, but for some reason we don't see it. And that might feel a little bit strange because we just created it and it looked like it lives on top of the level, but it actually don't. The reason why we don't see it is because these two game objects are on the same Z value or Z value. The level is at Z value 0 or depth value 0, and player is at depth value 0 as well, but we can change that. If we set it to depth value 1, which means that it will be 1 unit closer to the camera. So this is like 3D distance. So now the player is visible. It sits roughly in the center of the screen here. We can move it a little bit with the move tool if we want to. Place it wherever we want to have it. And save and run. It's really small, but it's up there and he's moving or animating. But this is not very interesting. We can't do anything with this guy. It doesn't move. If I press buttons, nothing happens. If I click here, nothing happens. So this is just two pieces of artwork that doesn't do anything. So let's start by trying to fix that by adding some interesting behaviors to this player character. And we do that by using scripting. And in default, we use Lua as a scripting language. And the easiest way to get, or the only way to get a script file attached to this player game object is to create a new script file and then add it as a component. So let's do that. I'm right-clicking main, for example. Again, you can place things wherever you want. I'm keeping everything in main. And then select new and then script file way down here. And let's call this player.script. And this will open up a script editor. What happens when I create a new script file is that I will get a script file with some pre-filled in code, but it doesn't do anything. It's just a couple of functions that are empty. It doesn't contain anything. We have an init function here, a final, an update function, an onMessage function, an onInput function, and one onReload function. And all of these are empty right now. So there's nothing there. But first, just make sure that you have that file here and then go back to the main collection, right-click player and choose add component from file. And now we get the selection. We're not going to use tilemap, we're going to use player script. And we see that the script is attached to the player. So that's all you have to do. And we see that the script it has an identifier name, an identifier script, and in parentheses you see the file that it points to, which in this case is /main/play.script. I can double click this and open the script file directly if I want to, or I can choose the script file from down here. There it is. Okay, and save again. So if I fire up the game by doing project, build and launch, now we have the game here, and now this script is being run on this game object, but nothing happens yet because all of these are empty. And we can start by filling out some quick tests. Let's print something here in it. This is init, for example. And in final, you can do the same and say print. This is final. There, and then save. And I'm going to run again. Build and launch. And if we look down here in the console, we see that it spits out this is init here as a debug script. So this is kind of useful if you wanna test something. We can like put in a print to print out something, to look at the value or see what happens. So that is what we have done here. So init is called, this function is called when the game starts and this game object is brought to life. And it prints this is init, and we see that here, down here in the console. Right? But then what is this then? The final. Let's close this. And there you go. This is final. So the final function is called when things are being destroyed or deleted from the game. So in this case, when we start up the game, the play game object is brought to life into the game engine, and we get a call to the function init, and it prints out this is init, and we see that here. And then later we stop the engine by closing it, which means that the engine will start destroying everything that is alive, including this game object, and that prints this one here. There's also an additional function here that's called update. Let's print. This is update. Save and run. Save and project build and launch. And we see that down here in the console, we get lots and lots and lots of this is update. So update is called a lot. And if we stop this, we get this is final at the end. We got that this is init way up here somewhere, but I have to scroll back. Oh, there it is. This is init, and then we got a ton of this is update. And then this is final. So these functions that we see here, they are part of the lifespan or the life cycle of a game object.